Welcome to the Tennis Warehouse shoe review of the Roger Pro 3s. For the third generation of the flagship Roger Pros, On updates the upper with a new mesh and TPU cage lock system. Additionally, On introduces their Helion Hyperfoam for the first time in one of their tennis court shoes. The carbon fiber speedboard returns underfoot for a springy forward feeling and keeping you moving aggressively all around the court. I've really enjoyed On shoes across the board so far. My favorites have probably been the Roger Pro Fires. That is, up until these Roger Pro 3s. I was a big fan of the 2s, but they were a little bit firm, a little bit uncomfortable, and kind of had a slappier feeling, a relatively flat chassis on the whole. And I do think that this is a very nice update. You've got a slightly more nimble feeling with these. They're a little bit more responsive, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit less flat, so good for pivoting and pushing off aggressively from the toes. But honestly, I was just really, really impressed with how these shoes felt. For me, the highlights were their responsiveness, just felt like I could input whatever kind of movement I was looking to execute on the court, and the shoes obeyed my every command. One of my favorite features of the Roger Pro 2s was what I referred to as a bailout, and that was sort of like bailing me out at the last second, letting me get to just one extra ball. And that's kind of what my play style is based around, so anytime a shoe helps with that, I'm gonna be really interested in what it does. And I am happy to say that these Roger Pro 3s have that same sort of bailout feature. Just again, I found myself getting to that extra ball even when I wasn't necessarily expecting to. Compared to the 2s, I do think that these have a little bit less rigidity and a little bit less durability. But overall, I think the increase in comfort and the more accessible nature make these a really strong and a highly compelling update.
I'm gonna preface my comments by saying I'm not as young or spry as Oak, I wish, but this was an interesting play test for me. This is the first time putting my feet into an On tennis shoe where they fit me perfectly. So I love that On has fixed the size issue. Before I was considering sizing up a half size, but the width was perfect for my medium feet and the length was perfect as well. So got them laced up and on the court and thought I had a bit of a break-in, but I actually was having some issues with the cushioning in this shoe. If you actually take out the insole and feel around the bottom, that speedboard is quite firm. And for someone that's a little bit on the bigger side like myself, I needed a little more cushioning, and after about 30 minutes, my feet constantly were getting sore. So out there on the court, it was a tough play test. After those 30 minutes, it happened time and time again up until that last day of our play test. So I was just craving a little more cushioning, a little less responsiveness maybe from this shoe. I'm trying to make amends with the On tennis shoes, but so far, I just haven't found one that has the ideal amount of cushioning. However, I am gonna say the upper support was amazing, the breathability was awesome, and I thought the stability was really good as well. I definitely felt fast in these, but I wouldn't trade off the fast for sore feet. As far as the outsole, I like the traction of these shoes. They are wearing pretty fast for me, so not the most durable option out there, but I will say you really feel connected to the court. They are very low to the ground, and I often took these shoes into the gym, and I actually love lifting in these shoes because you feel really connected to the floor with your lifts. So all in all, not the ideal tennis shoe for someone like me with my build, and a little bit on the older side. I'm trying to be cool and wear the On shoes. I think they look amazing, but for me, I just need a little bit more cushioning.
The last pair of On shoes I tested was the Roger Pro Fire, and I love those shoes. My favorite On shoe today, so super excited to give this Pro 3 version a test. Didn't get on quite as well with this one as I did with the Roger Pro Fire. I just found the forefoot to kind of slap the court rather than transition smoothly from heel to toe, and I've had that experience with other On shoes as well. As the shoes broke in, that did get better, but never truly went away. I did feel nice and low to the ground, felt very secure and stable in these shoes. I was moving okay, but again, I would just like a little bit more of a smoother heel to toe transition just to really get me flowing and feeling a little bit more natural out on the court. Durability, just okay. For me, nothing special there. They're holding up decently, but nothing really to write home about. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Traction was great, and I felt like I was getting all the grip I needed to make an aggressive lateral plant and then push off back in to the court. As Michelle mentioned too, nice and breathable on the uppers. I like the way they held my feet. They were supported without being restrictive, so the upper comfort was really good. Also like the padding around the tongue and the heel. Love wearing them casually, but not my choice for being on the court in these On shoes.
I've also been lucky enough to play test some previous On shoes, including the Fire and the previous Pro 2. And I think this Pro 3, again, makes some good steps in the right direction. First thing I wanted to comment on is the fit, which I was having issues with the previous one. This one On has fixed. Like Michelle said, it fits true to size. I stayed in my true size, as well as the width was a perfect medium. I didn't feel like I had any extra room anywhere. Another thing I liked was the support and stability. I really felt like I sat within the shoe and it had a nice low to the ground feel. I did use those extra eyelets to get a nice cinched feel around my ankles, and I did think the support was improved from the previous generation. I felt more secure within the shoe and I didn't have any extra movement, which I greatly appreciated. Another thing I liked was the weight. On the scale, this is slightly lighter than the previous generation, and I do feel like it feels quicker on court. It had a little bit smoother transition from heel to toe, however, maybe not as smooth as the Fires. Lastly, the traction for me, the last one, I felt like I was super sticky and kind of stuck in place from time to time. This one, I didn't have to think about the traction, which was great. Was able to have the perfect kind of blend of give and grip when I was moving around. On to the negatives, the first would be durability. I got about 10 hours on these shoes, and I'm not necessarily the hardest on my outsoles, but I did notice some wearing underneath my toe as well as around the edges. I don't think it's as durable as the previous one, but I think maybe slightly more durable than the first generation of the shoe. Lastly, probably the thing that kind of inhibited me the most was the comfort. I did have a little bit of a break-in period for this shoe, and I did have some issues underfoot with the cushioning. I wish there was a little bit more. It still felt very firm, and I was needing a little bit more plushness when I was moving around. Secondly, where the toe box meets the vamp, I had some creasing, and this was putting some pressure on my feet, on both my right and my left shoe, and I just could never get that to go away throughout the play test. So overall, I really love the look of this shoe. I feel it's one of the shoes that I could wear both on and off court. I just was looking for a little bit more comfort. For more information on this shoe or any others, please check us out at Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Warehouse Europe, or Tennis Only.